911, what's your emergency?
I have two dead people at the back of my store by my dumpster. My Budweiser man was here to drop off an order, and he walked to the dumpster to go dispose of some trash, and he came in and told me to call 911.
Authorities are looking for the victim's vehicle, a silver 2006 Kia Sorento SUV with gray trim. If you have any information, you're asked to call the Galveston County Sheriff's Office tip line at 866-248-8477.
What happened?
That's what we're trying to find out.
Why would somebody want to do this to them?
I've been asking myself that question too.
Can you explain to me how your print wound up on some of that over there where those bodies were recovered in Fort Bolivar, Texas?
My print was on what?
The scene. Can you explain to me why or how in your room where you stay that carpet throughout that room and furniture throughout that room is saturated?
Did you ever see blood in his room? Tell me where you saw the blood.
There was blood splatter. He just decided to kill my mother and his daughter.
Okay, tell me where the blood splatter was in his room.
On his bed.
You saw it on his bed? Okay, did you see it anywhere else?
On his floor.
You heard a gunshot. Tell me how you know it was a gunshot.
Because he took them to outside and just shoot them.
Okay, did somebody tell you that or did you see that?
I see that.
Welcome to the channel, but before we dive in, guys, if you like this video, please hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. Also, drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm super curious to see where my audience is tuning in from. Alright, now let's get started. Today, we're in Houston, Texas, a big, modern city in the Lone Star State, known for its mix of cultures and vibrant energy. You've got massive skyscrapers, historic neighborhoods, and plenty of green parks all in one place. The city's famous for space achievements too. It's home to NASA's Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center. And oh, the food scene here is amazing, especially Texan and Mexican cuisine. Plus there's a really lively arts and music vibe. Houston's a place where the modern world meets tradition and cultural diversity. Back in spring of 2014, 24-year-old Brittany Cosby and her girlfriend, 24-year-old Crystal Jackson, had already been together for 2 years, and their relationship just kept growing stronger. Brittany's parents divorced when she was little, and her dad would pop in and out of her life, doing time in prison here and there. Mostly, Brittany was raised by her great-grandma Annie, who she lived with and took care of. After a few years of feeling lost and unsure about her future, Brittany's life completely changed when she met Crystal. Friends would say they were each other's biggest supporters, always pushing each other to be better and helping each other shine. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. They faced judgment and even hatred from some family members just because they were gay and together. Crystal's dad, Ivan, was a pastor and often shared his strong opinions about God and relationships, while Brittany's dad, James, really didn't want to see them together at all. The problems between Brittany and James only got worse when he got out of prison and moved into the house temporarily between jobs. Still, Brittany and Crystal tried to push all that aside. Slowly, things started to settle down. Brittany absolutely adored Crystal's 5-year-old daughter, Zena. Brittany worked at Starbucks, and Crystal was a security guard. With her savings, tax refund, and Annie co-signing, Brittany managed to buy a new SUV. She was so excited she wouldn't have to take the bus to work anymore, and now she could give Crystal rides too. Brittany was thrilled she could drive Zena to school and pick her up. The car instantly gave them a sense of freedom, but they both wanted more their own place. Brittany was living with Annie and her dad, James, and Crystal was juggling Zena between Annie's house and her own parents' home. On March 3rd, right after Brittany got her new car, they drove over to Brittany's aunt's place to show it off. Aunt Ebony said seeing Brittany, who felt more like a sister to her, hit one of her goals made her feel really proud. After a quick chat, they swung by Crystal's parents' house to show them the car and pick up Crystal. Crystal asked her dad if he wanted to come outside and take a look, but he said no. "I love you, Dad," Crystal shouted as they drove off, excited to show the car to more people and share this big moment. Fast forward to March 6th, Mary, Crystal's mum, who worked at Zena's school, was feeling anxious. She hadn't been able to reach her daughter all morning, and her panic only grew when Zena didn't show up at school. Brittany's manager at Starbucks was worried too, since it was totally unlike her to skip a shift without letting anyone know. Late that evening, Mary and Ivan went over to Brittany's house and were relieved to find Zena there, but Brittany and Crystal were nowhere to be found. They took Zena with them and spent the rest of the night calling hospitals, police stations, and everyone they could think of, but no one knew where the two women were. The next morning, March 7th, around 7 a.m., a courier working the morning shift was delivering beer around the Port Bolivar area in Galveston County. His next stop was the Fisherman's Cove Food Mart, right next to an abandoned motel with huge shared trash bins. He went over to toss some garbage and saw something he just couldn't believe. He ran back into the store and begged the owner to come outside and call 911.
911, what's your emergency?
I have two dead people at the back of my store by my dumpster. My Budweiser man was here to drop off an order, and he walked to the dumpster to go dispose of some trash, and he came in and told me to call 911.
Behind the trash bins, they found two brutally beaten, blood-soaked bodies, Brittany Cosby and Crystal Jackson. Brittany had been stabbed 5 times with a sharp object, which caused a skull fracture and a split. Her neck had been broken, she'd been strangled, and her head was wrapped in a sheet. Crystal had also been strangled, but the fatal blow came from a gunshot fired at very close range. It was obviously a very personal and angry attack, especially toward Brittany. Detectives noted that the covering over her head suggested the killer couldn't face what they'd done, and the sheer number of blows showed an extreme level of cruelty beyond what was needed. There was very little blood at the scene, but during the autopsy, it became clear that Brittany had lost almost all of her blood, meaning they'd been killed somewhere else and dumped there. One of the investigators even said they were just thrown away like trash. The killer, or killers, didn't try to hide the bodies at all, they just dumped them and left. Nearby, there was an object that looked like a window blind with a bloody fingerprint on it. They also found a note with Brittany's name and home address, but nothing else. No bags, no wallets, no murder weapon. The police had a lot of questions but almost no information. The investigation started to unfold slowly, with only a few leads to go on.
Authorities are looking for the victim's vehicle, a silver 2006 Kia Sorento SUV with gray trim. If you have any information, you're asked to call the Galveston County Sheriff's Office tip line at 866-248-8477.
Houston detectives, coming from almost 60 miles away, showed up at Brittany's house to deliver the horrific news. When they knocked on the door, they noticed a window blind was missing, the same kind that had been found at the crime scene. They ended up talking with Brittany's 92-year-old great-grandma, Annie.
Yes, Miss Ma'am. My name is Annie Lee Cosby.
She said, "I was worried, because I hadn't heard from Brittany. I was checking in on her a few times a day." While they were talking with Annie, James, Brittany's dad, came home.
What's going on?
Are you the father?
Yes.
Sit down, Bill. Please sit down. Yeah, just have a seat.
Brittany's dad.
What happened?
That's what we're trying to find out.
What happened?
You brief all you need to agree, we understand.
What happened? What happened? What happened?
That's what we need your help with.
That's what we need to help. We want to know, right now, we want to find out who did this, okay?
James was instantly speechless when the police told him what had happened to his daughter. Tragically, Brittany's mom, Loranda, and her aunt, Ebony, found out on their own, even before the police could reach them. They opened Facebook and saw countless rest in peace messages. Annie said she had absolutely no idea who could have wanted to hurt her granddaughter. "I raised her since she was 2. All she ever did was go to school and work." Brittany's dad, James, was also shocked and confused. "My head's spinning. I just can't understand how this could happen or who could do something like this." The police asked James if he knew who the woman with Brittany might have been, and he confirmed, based on the description, that it was probably her girlfriend.
Real thin, but
That's
her
girlfriend.
That's her
girlfriend. That's Crystal.
It is Crystal. I mean, any bad relationships, breakups, anything like that you know that anybody that's mad at either one of them. I mean, I don't know.
Neither James nor Annie had seen Brittany's SUV, so a search was put out for a silver 2006 Kia Sorento. The detectives asked James about the missing window blind, and he explained that they'd been trying to get in touch with a contractor to finish some work. The guy, Pepe, was often around their house, but James hadn't seen him in a while, which really annoyed him since the work was still unfinished. He gave the police Pepe's contact info, and they went to talk to him. Pepe turned out to be a lot older than they expected, walking slowly and leaning on a cane. The police quickly realized he physically couldn't have committed the murders. He also didn't know anything about the blind and hadn't been in the house for a long time. Next, the police spoke with Mary and Ivan, Crystal's parents. Ivan was very open about his feelings toward Brittany and his daughter's sexuality.
Time on my watch is 8:25 a.m. So you never even would let Brittany come in the house.
The only reason I let her come in the house, when she come in the house, she go sit right there where you sitting.
Okay.
And I didn't like that. She just experimenting on something.
Mary said she loved her daughter so much that she accepted her and supported her in everything. She had always tried to bring her and Crystal closer together. Ivan also admitted that he owned a gun, but he swore he had nothing to do with their deaths. The police took his weapon for testing and started keeping a closer eye on him. A few days later, they questioned Brittany's dad, James, again to clarify the timeline. James said he saw the couple on Thursday morning, and everything seemed fine.
Last you saw Brittany was it Wednesday night?
No.
Thursday morning.
Yeah.
What time did Crystal reach?
The same thing they usually leave every morning. It was like just a normal one. Nothing was out of the way.
Zeno was left home alone, and the emptiness that came with it felt haunting, impossible to fill even with thoughts. The question of what happened next hung over everything like a dark curtain, and no one could say for sure how the day would end. James insisted he had no idea why they left without taking Zena to school. It was clearly out of the ordinary. Something about it broke the usual rhythm of their life, and it made him anxious. He guessed maybe they'd just gone to the store and planned to come back for the kid, but even that logical explanation didn't ease his mind. James himself had been busy that day with his girlfriend Kimberly, and if anything happened after that, he had no clue, completely in the dark about what was going on beyond his attention. If we assume they returned home soon after and were attacked, then another chilling detail emerged. Brittany's SUV was caught on a security camera leaving the store around 4:28 a.m. on March 6th. That small, cold timestamp became a key piece of the puzzle. It didn't match exactly what James had told the police. He said they left the house around 7:30 a.m. without Zena, and he only guessed they might have gone to the store. Every detail, every minute of that morning, suddenly took on enormous importance. The same camera caught the same vehicle about 12 hours later on the same street, moving in the same direction toward Galveston, where the bodies were later found. This second sighting sent a deeper chill through the investigation. While the camera showed the car itself, it couldn't reveal who was inside. The mystery stayed hidden behind the SUV's darkened windows, and every second added tension and anxiety for the detectives. The police questioned Mary and Ivan again, this time to learn more about Zena's father and the relationships he once had. Mary explained that those relationships basically fell apart almost immediately after Zena was born, leaving only emptiness and a cold routine. Crystal had full custody of her daughter, and her ex, Reginald, was now completely absent from their lives. Mary stressed that, despite the breakup, there was no bitterness between them. The relationship simply didn't exist anymore. She couldn't imagine, even for a second, that he could be involved in something like this, because his absence from the child's life seemed entirely trivial, not dangerous. Every word she said sounded calm, but in the air, there was a subtle reminder of how thin the line can be between ordinary life and horror. Reginald was questioned, and it turned out he had been at home all day and night with his mum. His presence was completely documented, and he cooperated willingly with the investigation, even giving a DNA sample voluntarily. The results were clear. He was immediately ruled out as a suspect, which let the investigators eliminate another potential lead. The tension in the air was still there, but at least for a short while. Soon after, the police got a call from a local resident who lived about a mile from Brittany's house. The man said he'd found her wallet on a quiet walking trail, mostly used by dog owners. The place looked ordinary and peaceful, but for the detectives, it became another small piece of the complicated puzzle. No other evidence was found on the trail, but there was hope that DNA from the wallet could help push the case forward. In Galveston, the police checked every camera they could find, starting with the store around the corner from the motel, just steps from the trash bins. But the cameras captured nothing. Brittany and Crystal weren't seen inside the store, and the outdoor camera didn't show them or their car. It felt almost like some invisible hand was quietly manipulating events, leaving only incomplete, scattered fragments of information. The detectives quickly realized that if Brittany and Crystal had actually driven from Houston to Galveston, they would have had to cross the channel by ferry. This fact became key. The ferry was a narrow point that couldn't be avoided, and any information there could be crucial. Sure enough, surveillance cameras captured the missing Kia driving onto the ferry. The investigators saw a tall man get out of the car, walk to the front of the SUV, and strike up a conversation with the guard managing the ferry traffic. The guard confirmed that he did talk to the driver, but he didn't check to see if anyone was in the back seat, so that detail remained unknown. He saw cars come and go all day, but this interaction had seemed unusual to him, and it stuck out in his memory amidst the everyday flow of traffic. The man stopped the Kia to ask the driver about broken headlights. When he got out of the car, he seemed awkward and nervous. It was obvious he didn't know much about cars. His conversation was strange and kind of illogical. After that, he drove onto the ferry, heading toward Galveston. Considering the time of death for Crystal and Brittany, the investigators came to a chilling conclusion. They were already dead in the back seat of that very SUV as it drove onward, and all these seemingly ordinary actions became part of a horrifying chain of events. Based on everything the guard reported, the police released a composite sketch. They were looking for a black man with faint mustache, tall about 6 feet, slender build, possibly around 30 years old. Every detail from the way he spoke to his physical features could be the key to finally piecing together the fragmented story of this tragedy.
Galveston County Sheriff's detectives continue to search for possible witnesses in connection with 2 women killed on the Bolivar Peninsula. Detectives say they're conducting interviews of possible witnesses and have released a composite drawing of the suspect last seen with the women. Officers are asking for help in identifying the man in this sketch. It's believed the women's bodies were dumped after they were killed someplace else. The Galveston County Sheriff's Office says it's following up on a lead it received in the deaths of Brittany Cosby and Crystal Jackson. Both were 24 years old from Houston. Their bodies were found behind Fisherman's Cove Food Mart in Port Bolivar around 7:45 Friday morning.
The composite sketch was shown to people in the victims' lives, but no one recognized the man. It had been dark when the guard talked to him, and it happened a few days ago, so his memory might not have been entirely accurate. Experts were able to confirm one thing: the type of gun used to shoot Crystal didn't match Ivan's firearm at all. They had spoken with him multiple times after the first interviews, and were confident he wasn't involved. It was really hard knowing I was a suspect. I loved my little bee, loved her too much to ever hurt her, Ivan said. I've never been through anything like this before, but I never imagined I'd have to bury my own child, he added. 6 days had passed since the murders, and the community held a vigil to honor the memory of these 2 deeply loved people.
We need to find out what's happening. The detectives are doing what they do. They've been keeping us informed as much as they can, but there's nothing yet.
At the station, the detectives finally got the results from the first tests on the blind and the note found at the crime scene. The room was tense. The air felt heavy, like it carried the weight of the revelations to come. They found a single fingerprint, and when they ran it through the database, the detectives could hardly contain their shock. Detective Kitchen, who was leading the investigation, couldn't believe his eyes. A chill ran down his spine. His heart skipped a beat. The fingerprint matched none other than James Cosby, Brittany's father. Words couldn't capture the weight of that discovery. The person with a direct connection to the victims suddenly became the central suspect in a case that had already shaken the city. James had a long and dark criminal history. He was a registered sex offender and had only been released from prison 5 months earlier. Court records showed he had served 2 years for an unregistered sexual offence, but that was just part of his past. He also had convictions for sexual harassment, assault, and illegal weapons possession. Even seasoned detectives found it hard to imagine that this man could be involved in his own daughter's death, yet the fingerprint left no doubt. The police returned to Brittany's house for a thorough search, trying to gather every possible piece of evidence before he came back. They met Annie, the caretaker, who seemed calm, though the detectives caught a slight hint of tension in her eyes. "Where's James?" they asked directly, trying not to show the unease they felt. "He's at the vigil," she replied without looking up, as if it were a routine answer that didn't raise any suspicion. The detectives hoped they'd finally have enough time to check every room and gather as much evidence as possible before he got back. Every step through the house was slow, careful. They knew that missing even one detail could be critical to the case. The caretaker happily showed them various things that seemed out of place. Extra rugs that had been suddenly bought and laid out in random spots, creating a weird contrast with the usually chaotic interior, and the yard, normally covered in leaves and debris, now spotless, which made the detectives suspicious that someone had been trying to wipe away traces. They noticed a few random bricks that looked unnatural in their placement. Detective Kitchen carefully lifted one and immediately understood why. It was covering bloodstains that had gone unnoticed before. Gradually, their search revealed a chilling scene. Another bloodstain on the doorframe confirmed that the violence had taken place right here, in a house that, at first glance, seemed ordinary and familiar. Every little detail, every trace, became part of a grim mosaic, slowly forming the harsh reality of what had happened. Detective Kitchen got a warrant, and the team entered what was clearly the crime scene. Luminol revealed a horrifying sight. Blood everywhere on the walls and floors of the living room, which doubled as James's bedroom. Blood was on the speakers, the chair, sections of the carpet, even on his shoes. The police seized a hammer and over 300 pieces of evidence. One detective said it was the largest collection of evidence he had ever gathered at a crime scene. At the vigil, James begged people to help with the investigation, but immediately after it ended, he was called to the station.
What happened?
That's what we're trying to find out.
Why would somebody want to do this to them?
I've been asking myself that question too.
Even after a long 6-hour interrogation, James said very little. Finally, the detectives told him what they had found in the house, and that his fingerprints had been discovered at the crime scene.
Can you explain to me how your print wound up on some of that over there where those bodies were recovered in Port Bolivar, Texas?
My print was on what?
The scene. Can you explain to me why or how in your room where you stay that carpet throughout that room and furniture throughout that room is saturated.
What else we found on the scene? James Larry Cosby Jr.'s sheets wrapped around his daughter's head. And you expect us to believe that James Larry Cosby Jr. don't know what happened to her, James? They wrap her up because you couldn't stand to look at her face and see what was done.
He couldn't bring himself to look at her face, to see what had been done to her. James said he couldn't explain how his fingerprint ended up there, couldn't explain the blood in his room, and claimed he had no idea what happened after that. A few hours later, the detective's tone changed sharply. They'd had enough of the lies and mind games.
You've been in that room, sleeping in that room, with your daughter's blood on the carpet. Jesus, that's horrible.
Yeah, there's no way
I'm
you
not looking
could
at it the way you're looking at it because I didn't know that was like that. You say I'm.
You can't miss it. I seen it as soon as I walked in there.
Okay, so
Brittany had her brains beat in. Explain that. You can explain it. That's your daughter's head smashed in. You explain it. Throw it away like a garbage. That's your daughter. This is your daughter's brains coming out of the hole in her head.
And James, you did it.
And you did it.
You did it.
That is your own daughter. Your own daughter. Look at this camera and show some remorse.
James was charged with 2 counts of destroying and concealing evidence, but there still wasn't enough proof to charge him with murder.
Deputies in Galveston County have made an arrest in connection with a double homicide in Port Bolivar, and they say the suspect is the father of one of the dead women. Deputies testified 46-year-old James Cosby from Houston and charged him with 2 counts of tampering with evidence.
James's girlfriend told the detectives that she had picked him up from a Whataburger near a strip club just a few hours before Brittany and Crystal's bodies were found. At first, it seemed like a normal night, but now, every minute of that evening took on a sinister meaning. Shortly after James got into her car, he immediately called the Houston police. During the call, he reported that Kimberly's ex-boyfriend had supposedly tried to push them off the road. His voice sounded nervous, but focused. And during that call, James gave his name a seemingly small detail that ended up being crucial for the investigation, because it allowed the police to track his movements via his phone, step by step, reconstructing the route he took that night. The police quickly and clearly ruled Kimberly out of the case, officially stating that she had nothing to do with the crime. All checks confirmed that her role was limited to giving James a ride that evening. For investigators, this meant narrowing the suspect pool and focusing their attention on him. Despite the growing pile of evidence, James stayed silent. He didn't explain himself or try to defend his actions, leaving a heavy, oppressive silence in his wake. The police then turned to his family and friends to build a psychological profile and better understand who he really was. Family members said James was a devout Muslim and openly disapproved of what he called his daughter's way of life. He never supported her, never accepted her sexuality, and flatly rejected her relationship with Crystal. According to them, he often mocked Brittany, belittled her, and over the years made her life tense, painful, and emotionally exhausting. People close to James also said he felt intense jealousy toward his own daughter. It really bothered him that Brittany had a steady job and a brand new SUV, while he was living in his grandmother's house with nothing like that to his name. When he found out that Annie, the caregiver, was planning to leave the house to Brittany, it sent him into a real rage. After getting out of prison a few months earlier, he kept telling people that everything in the house had changed, and he absolutely hated it. He was sleeping in the living room, feeling like an outsider, and getting angry over the smallest things. It annoyed him that Brittany and Crystal could just leave the house and go buy pizza while he was stuck eating sandwiches. He was also deeply irritated that his daughter wouldn't let him use the car, a car he saw as a symbol of her independence, something he clearly resented. One investigator later said that everyone who knew James made one thing very clear: he despised his daughter, for many reasons, and especially because of her sexuality. Still, police had no direct confession. Since James refused to talk, detectives were left piecing together a possible motive from fragments, family statements, memories from people who knew him, and behavior that seemed to reflect years of built-up anger and hatred. Brittany's mother, Loranda, didn't hide how she felt. Her words were sharp, filled with pain and rage. "Right now, I hate him. Put him in the electric chair. I want him to suffer." Those words sounded like the raw cry of a mother who had lost her daughter, someone who could no longer see the line between justice and revenge.
Developments tonight in the case of a father arrested in connection with the murder of his daughter and her girlfriend. We've learned detectives have uncovered a key piece of evidence that puts him at the scene where the women's bodies were found.
Investigators are building their case against James Cosby, and they believe he not only knew about the violent deaths of his daughter and her girlfriend, he tried to cover them up. Their bodies were found near a dumpster in Port Bolivar, but investigators are calling Cosby's Houston home a secondary crime scene. They say inside they recovered several items that could be weapons, including a hammer. According to court documents, detectives searched Cosby's bedroom and found large areas of blood on surfaces throughout. They also noticed a missing window shutter on the home and found a similar shutter covered in blood at the scene where the women's bodies were found. Authorities say Cosby claimed the shutter was missing before he moved in, but when asked how his fingerprint got on the one at the scene, investigators say he could not provide a reason as to why.
Police say a possible motive: Cosby's father disapproved of his daughter's same-sex relationship.
He have said it to me too a few times that he didn't like the idea of her being gay.
Brittany Cosby's mom told us Cosby was troubled by their daughter's gay relationship with Crystal Jackson. The couple's SUV is still missing, but the court documents also show it was seen on surveillance video traveling both directions on the Bolivar Ferry the night of the murder.
Why would you do this? This is your child. This is something we conceived together. Ain't that much hatred in this world to make you just do this.
It's a violent crime that hits close to home for Gina Harris. She's both African American and homosexual. She admits she has been treated differently just because of who she is.
It could be anything. It could be a certain look. It could be a way someone addresses me, but it's not something that ever goes away.
Harris hopes gatherings like this one will make people realize how hate can escalate into violence and how things need to change.
At this point, Cosby is charged with tampering with evidence, specifically the bodies. Detectives say they are waiting on test results to come back from items taken from his home before they decide whether there might be a murder charge. Live in the newsroom, Tim Wetzel, KHOU 11 News.
The detectives conducted a final interview with 5-year-old Zena, who had seen and heard a lot.
Tell me everything that happened from that morning to the time you went to sleep.
She said that Crystal had buckled her into her car seat and then went back inside. Zena heard a loud pop, followed by a sound like rustling and cracking.
You said when you were sitting in the car you heard something?
Yeah, it was like going like zzz, like somebody was lasering somebody.
Like somebody was what?
Lasering.
She described the sound as coming really close to the car. She ducked down in her seat, trying to hide from what looked like a big, scary man. Some time passed before James came back, leaned into the car, and took the keys. Zena went inside with him. "Do you know where my mum is?" she asked. He shrugged. "Probably in one of the rooms." "Can I check your room?" she asked. "No!" James snapped, his voice sharp and frightening. Then he left the house, leaving Zena all alone.
Did you ever see blood in his room? Tell me where you saw the blood.
There was blood splatter. He just decided to kill my mother and his daughter.
Okay, tell me where the blood splatter was in his room.
On his bed.
You saw it on his bed? Okay, did you see it anywhere else?
On his floor.
You heard a gunshot. Tell me how you know it was a gunshot.
Because they said, he took them to outside and just shoot them.
Okay, did somebody tell you that or did you see that?
I see that.
The detective's theory about what happened that morning was chilling and tragically clear. It likely started as a conflict between Brittany and James that quickly spiraled out of control. Angry and agitated, James hit his daughter in the face, knocking her to the floor, then struck her head several times with an unknown object. Each blow left its mark, and the air filled with the metallic scent of blood. Brittany lay on the floor, helpless and weak, in a pool of her own blood. But James didn't stop. He began strangling her, continuing the violence until life left her body. Meanwhile, Crystal had come back inside to get Zena and witnessed the horrifying attack. She instantly realized she was in danger and tried to run, reaching for her daughter. Her escape was short-lived. She ran outside, but was shot near the window, her body collapsing amid the screams and silence that had overtaken the house. This explained the blood found on the blinds and doors, as well as the chaos and signs of struggle that marked the final minutes of both victims' lives. James left Zena in the house with Crystal and Brittany while he spent the day with Kimberly, showing no sign of worry or concern, as if nothing terrible had happened. Later that evening, he returned to the house, loaded the victims' bodies into the Kia, and went on a long drive. He spent over an hour driving to Port Bolivar, where he ruthlessly dumped the bodies into the water, trying to erase the traces of his horrific crime. But his route didn't end there. He drove another hour north, all the way to the Houston strip club The Ritz, creating an alibi and blending into the nightlife as a seemingly ordinary person. When he arrived, James parked the car and went to the nearby Whataburger. There, he called Kimberly to pick him up, and then, almost mechanically, dialed 911 to report Kimberly's ex-boyfriend allegedly trying to push them off the road. That call turned out to be an unexpected clue for the police. It not only revealed the location of Brittany's missing SUV, but also added more evidence of his behavior, which appeared entirely deliberate and calculated. James Larry Cosby Jr. was finally officially charged with 2 counts of capital murder. He pleaded not guilty on all charges, leaving the court and investigators to prove his guilt through evidence and testimony. The tip about the strip club helped investigators locate Brittany's missing SUV. About a month later, the club owner, tired of the vehicle taking up a parking spot, had it towed to an impound lot. During the processing of the car, police immediately noticed the horrifying details. The back of the SUV was covered in blood, and inside they found a bullet fragment containing Crystal's DNA. These pieces of evidence definitively tied James to the gruesome crime, leaving little room for doubt and adding a chilling layer to an already horrific story.
Meanwhile, funeral services were held today for 2 women found murdered behind a Bolivar convenience store.
Family members and friends gathered at 2 Houston churches today to say goodbye to 24-year-olds Brittany Cosby and Crystal Jackson. And tonight, Cosby's father remains in a Galveston County jail charged in connection with their deaths.
Erica, Crystal Jackson's father is a pastor, and today he spoke during his own daughter's funeral here at New Peaceful Rest Baptist Church.
Ooh, praise Him.
With song,
we have come to the throne of grace, seeking help.
And scripture, mourners paid tribute to 24-year-old Brittany Cosby at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. Meanwhile, another crowd gathered at New Peaceful Rest Baptist Church, saying goodbye to Crystal Jackson. In a tribute passed out to mourners today, Brittany Cosby's great-grandmothers said Brittany did her best to take care of her, and she's not sure what she's going to do without her. And today, Jackson's father said he feels no animosity toward Cosby's family. He says he prays for them as well, and he is thankful for all of the support his family has received over the last week.
In 2016, during the trial, James's attorneys again argued that he did not have the murder weapon, and despite what James had expressed about his feelings toward his daughter, they claimed he had no motive. However, the prosecution pointed out that proving motive was not necessary, as phone records tracked James all the way to the location where the bodies were found. The amount of evidence inside the house spoke for itself, and Zenner helped fill in the final gaps in the sequence of events. The prosecutor stated that James was a person consumed by bitterness, anger, hatred, and jealousy. A person capable of killing his own daughter and her girlfriend, then acting as if nothing had happened, is truly evil, and someone who must be imprisoned for life.
We have breaking news from Galveston County. A jury there has just found James Larry Cosby guilty of capital murder for killing his daughter and her girlfriend. We're told because this is a capital murder case, Cosby will automatically receive a life sentence without parole, and he will be formally sentenced tomorrow morning.
In August 2016, James Cosby was found guilty of capital murder and was automatically sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His appeal was denied. Zenner is now being raised by Crystal's parents. Ivan said that every day he struggles with his feelings and the conversations from the past. He added that, although it has been incredibly difficult, it has also made him stronger because he now carries the responsibility of raising his granddaughter. There's one verse in the Bible that helped me forgive this person. Absent from the body, present with the Lord. I know that my daughter and Brittany are now with God. I carry a lot of guilt for not telling my daughter the things I should have said. The tragic story of Brittany and Crystal began as a story of love and hope for a bright future together, but it became a painful reminder that discrimination and judgment exist even in the circles where we should feel closest and safest. When we remember Brittany and Crystal, we must also remember the many others who face hatred, judgment, and violence, simply for who they are. At such a young age, Zenner lost not only so much, but she also saw and heard things no child should ever have to experience, simply waiting for her mother to take her to school. Years later, Zenner told a reporter from True Crime Daily,
How much do you miss your mommy? Maybe the last number of all of the numbers. That's the highest number.
Detective Danny Kittens, who led the investigation and worked around the clock to bring justice for the young couple, said that Crystal's and Brittany's families have now become like one big family. He proudly serves as Zenner's godfather and lovingly supports her as she grows up. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. I hope you found this story both compelling and important to know. If you'd like to support my channel and help continue creating content, please like, comment, share this video, and subscribe. Your support truly matters, and I sincerely appreciate everyone who helps